I'm going to be using my handy dandy acorn full of TBR prompts to help me pick the next book that I'm going to be reading. I'm going to pick a prompt, read the book, pick a prompt, read the book, and see how many books we get to read this week. Let's pick the first book. I have no idea, but I'm so excited. All I know is I have a bunch of books that I need to get through, and I didn't know how else to do it besides like, I don't know. Let's just pick. The first book we will be reading, let's see. What does this prompt say? Bro, literally, I guess I did not finish. This is an incomplete sentence. It literally says, a book that has a cover you. That's it. Like, that's literally the prompt. A book that has a cover you. Let me pick another prompt. So stressed for no reason. I can't believe I did that. I wonder how many other prompts are incomplete. Anyway, okay, let's actually like pick one for real this time. That was just like a test. Like, that was just to see if you were like actually paying attention. Here's the one that we're reading for realsies, hopefully. What does this say? A book with a title that starts with A. A title that starts with the letter A. Like a something, a this, a that. There's only one book on my entire bookshelf that starts with the letter A. Guess what book that is? I cannot believe I'm about to read this book. Can't believe it, but it's time. It's time. What did I just get myself into? Well, guys, the prompts have spoken, and it looks like I'll be reading A Court of Wings and Ruin. I just want to point out how big this book is. Like, this is gonna be the book for the whole video. Unintentionally. I was thinking about dedicating a whole separate reading vlog just for this book, but it kind of naturally happened. And if you see my mid-year book tag, this is a book that I kind of wanted to finish before the year is over anyway. It's time. Why am I so sad? Like, I'm actually like really happy because this series is actually really freaking good. But I just know that it's about to take over my life. I think that's why I'm kind of like, well, that kind of ruined me reading 3 books this weekend. I think this book has 699 pages if I remember correctly. It has 699 pages. But okay, let me stop being dramatic. But this is a very serious situation. This is serious, okay? I cannot believe that prompt just did that to me. Anyway, A Court of Wings and Ruin, the 3rd book of the ACOTAR series, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses. When you're reading a series, I think anything that I talk about in this reading vlog could be a spoiler if you didn't read the 1st or 2nd book. But let me tell you what the 1st book is about, just in case you're curious, okay? I give that book 3 stars because I did not like the ending, but let me just talk about it from like an objective point of view, okay? I remember like it was yesterday. I don't even need to go get the book to remind myself of what it's about because I already know. That's how good and captivating her writing is. Sarah J. Maas. Basically, it's about this girl named Farah who's just a normal human. She is kind of like poor. It's like the winter cold season, and she has sisters or whatever. She is like hunting in the woods for like food because they're like starving, and she ends up killing this wolf. But that wolf ended up being a fairy. And the plot thickens from there. So when she kills this fairy, naturally another fairy comes from the fairyland to like demand retribution for her killing that fairy. The girl already skinned the fairy, cut up the fairy, like got the meat from the wolf. But this fairy is coming back for retribution. The fairy that came back was Tamlin, and Tamlin basically was like, you need to come back to my land. Your punishment is gonna be you need to live with me on my land with me and my people. Okay, anyway, let's keep going, right? She needs to go back to his land, so now a mortal human is going to the fairy world. But then I remember on the synopsis of that book, it's saying that there's a dark shadowy thing lurking in the corners or whatever, and it's going to doom Tamlin and all of his people if they don't get this shadowy thing under control. And so somehow, Farah is going to help. If Farah doesn't do something, Tamlin and all his people are gonna be damned, okay? And so basically the 1st book takes you on the journey of a mortal girl being in the fairy world while this shadowy dark thing is like taking over and causing ruckus in that world. But also we gotta keep in mind that like fairies and humans, they don't interact, okay? They don't interact. So she's already gone to this world like with like, but also she just killed one of their people. So if anyone should be, it's the fairies, right? But anyway, you know, like it was just very, very cool, very whimsical. It takes you to a different world. And so if you like magical realism and just like all that kind of stuff, you're gonna like the series. And then the 2nd book was my all-time favorite book, Reese, the High Lord of the Night Court. my fictional boyfriend. Now we're on the third book, accidentally, but it's time. It is very much time. I'm gonna be reading this book until I'm done with it, and that's what it, and that's that. So here we are. So bye-bye. Far away. Girl, what am I doing? So, okay, let me fix my hair. Alright, so I need to go back and refresh my memory to get all the small details. Like, I know Farah's sisters are now like fairies and stuff too now. They all were thrown into the cauldron. Farah herself is a fairy. High Lady of the Night Court. The king showed up and just like went crazy. And then we found out in the second book that Tamlin was working with this evil king, which is the worst betrayal ever. Like, I never liked Tamlin. I've never liked him. Like, I never liked him. In the first book, I never liked him. Well, actually, let me take that back. He had me confused, and which made me mad, which made me not like him. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I get it, but then it's like, yeah, no. But Rhys, I didn't like Rhys at the end of the first book because I was like, why is he playing with Farah like that? But then in the second book, you find out why he was playing around like that. And that made me like love him. Like, he's been my guy the whole time. Lucien, I like how mysterious he is. Like, I never really figured him out. And I feel like I can't figure him out because he's so guarded. He's so like hurt about a lot of things. And he's just like not revealing everything. I just love how guarded he is. Because I'm like, you know, he reminds me a lot of myself. Like, cool, but mysterious. I would describe myself as cool and mysterious. But anyway, also Elaine is Lucien's mate. Once Tamlin found out that, what are their names? Farah and Rhys were mates. Like, they had them like break the bond, and that made me sad because I was, you know, Rhys is low-key my boyfriend, not even Farah's, but that made me sad because I was like, how are you gonna just break them up like that? They're like literally made it, like they're supposed to be together. It's like written in the stars. I love how this book started. Like, it just, the reason why I feel like I need to go back is because it just kept going. You know what I'm saying? It went straight into chapter 1 where Farah talking about how she's at the spring court, and we know from like the end of the second book, Tamlin took her back to the spring court because she is his. This is exactly why I didn't like Tamlin from the first book. He's so possessive, and it's like, that's never been cute. Anyway, all that is to say is, what was I saying? Oh, I like how the third book just got right into it. It wastes no time. I love that I can speak freely because this video will have spoilers in it, and I just like that freedom. And if you like this kind of video, then be sure to join the book club because the book club is all about freely speaking about the book that we're reading. I remember there are 2 parts of the book that can like nullify the cauldron, and the cauldron has like powers that can like turn humans into fairies and make them immortal. And so these wicked queens wanted to be immortal as well and just like be queens forever because like they can't die type, so like they're queens forever type thing, whatever. The queens didn't really trust the king for obvious reasons, and so they're like, I need to see that this cauldron actually works before I get in there and risk my life, right? So the king was like, okay, we'll get 2 girls who are like really strong-willed or whatever, who will be able to survive being thrown into the cauldron. So they get Farah's sisters. Ianthe, she like played everybody, even Tamlin. She was like learning, and like she was with Farah a lot and just like low-key learning all about Farah, her sisters, where they live, her homeland, just talking to her like she was a friend, and gave all of that information to the king. And so then the king found the sisters, grabbed them, and brought them to the cauldron with him, all blah blah blah. So in front of everybody, the queens, Farrah, Tamlin, and Lucien is there, in front of Rhys and all of his inner friends, his close circle. In front of everybody, one by one, the king throws the sisters in the cauldron just to show that they won't die if you're like strong-willed. The first person to get thrown into the cauldron is Elaine, who's like the most innocent of them all, right? Apparently, but like she really hates fairies. It is so funny how like they absolutely cannot stand fairies. They're so against it. They wear like ash and iron, all this kind of stuff, and then they become them. Anyway, and then they also throw Nesta into the cauldron, but she went down swinging, like fighting, like she's a diva, you know? Anyway, she's now a fairy, and I'm like, Farrah also, she has every court's powers within her, so she's like really dangerous, right? But anyway, she just like has this thought like, let me like put on a show. So then she goes to this like transformation and she breaks the curse that Rhys put on her, so that he was controlling her, making her do everything that she didn't want to do because she's in love with Tamlin. And so anyway, she goes to this episode. She sent out this like huge wave of power and like broke all of the curses and like put down all of the wars that were up to that stopped everyone else from using their powers. But like the king didn't realize that she broke the curse, right? And so then Farrah's like trying to distract, like saying like, get me away from him, like get me away from Rhys. Like I didn't want to do any of that. He made me do it. Like she's saying all this regular stuff. Like he made me do this. I didn't want to do anything. I love you, Tamlin. Da 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 da. She's like, break our bond. She tells the king to break her bond between her and Rhys, right? And Rhys is like, no, heartbroken. I'm like, I remember reading, I was like, my heart was broken. I was like, no, because I love Rhys, you know? Like, no. Anyway, she tells the king to break the bond. And then it's actually like painful because he does break a bond, but not their mating bond. Like, I don't know if y'all remember from the first book. The first book, Rhys put a bond on her, an eyeball on her hand or something like that, to where he was connected to her, like he could see into her world, whatever. I think that's how that went, but that was like 2 books ago. So the king broke that bond, but he didn't break the mating bond. But everybody thinks that the king broke the mating bond. Tamlin thinks it, everybody who was there thinks it, except like low-key 3 people. Rhys knows, Farrah knows, because they were mated together. But then low-key Lucien knows. Low-key Lucien is seeing right through Farrah. I think I like Lucien too because he's like hard up, but like he's way smarter than he lets on. Like he just bites his tongue a lot, and he has this like metal eye. I'm like, what can that eye see? Because he knows. Like the way that book ended, I'm like, Lucien was just looking at her like, girl. But Lucien can't do anything because her sister is his mate. Like, what's he gonna do? So like one of Rhys's like inner friends winnowed and like pushed Lucien off of Elaine and grabbed the sisters and like disappeared, like dipped, right? And then Rhys grabbed his other friends and then they all like winnowed and disappeared. And the king was like, how did my warriors get down? Like, how did they get out of here? Or whatever, because they were not supposed to be able to do that, you know? And so anyway, so now they're gone, they're disappeared. Like obviously now they're gonna go even further and hide. And Lucien's like, my mate, like that was my mate. Like, and now she is with Rhys and the Illyrians, who are so nasty because they're like part of the Night Court and they're like terrible people, even though none of that is true. Farrah knows that her sisters are like basically safe. They're with literally her mate, beautiful people. To everyone else, they're like, oh my god, they're about to get tortured with Illyrians. But then Lucien looks at Farrah like, why aren't you like reacting that your sisters are now with the Night Court people? Like, something's off about that, right? Lucien is so smart. Tamlin dumbass is just like, oh my god, I can't believe he warped your mind. I never liked Tamlin, y'all. That's why I didn't like the first book. Like, if you're a Tamlin fan, hey, what's up? But like, I see, but I don't agree. The reason all this is happening is his fault, really. He went through all of this, betrayed all of these people to get her back. He thought that she was like taken. He didn't realize that she left on her own will. He like made a deal with the king of Highburn, like one of the worst people on the planet, to get Farrah back because he loved her. She's his. If only he really knew that she didn't even want to be with him in the first place. Like that's the tea right there. He's doing all this for someone who doesn't even want him. Save your energy, Tamlin. Save your energy. So now Rhys has her sisters, and now Farrah is back at the Spring Court with Tamlin and his people. And that's kind of how the second book ended. Farrah has her own agenda now. So now that she's on the Spring Court, her plan is to like figure out what the king is trying to do, because the king made a deal with Tamlin that he was gonna use the Spring Court's land so that he can tear down the wall that separates fairies from humans from the Spring Court area, just to get Farrah back. And Farrah doesn't even want to be back. Lucien wants to get his mate back, obviously, so he's trying to figure out how can we infiltrate the Night Court, and they're gonna use Farrah to try to remember how the Night Court was laid out. What can she tell them about the Night Court to get them back and all this kind of stuff. And like everyone is just scheming, girl. Now the nitty gritty has begun. And now it's dinner time.